Okay, hi guys. Thanks for watching. We are back on Canna Tell You Something. So this show is where your host Harish Kumar, will get on a call with a few people from all around the world, from the cannabis background, to share about what is going on in their country, about their companies, about their personal stories and everything. So today we have a very special guest with us from India. His name is Yash Kotak from BOHECO, which is Bombay Hemp Company. So this he and his partners is actually listed on Asian Forbes 30 under 30, which is an amazing achievement by them. And I'm sure he has a lot of things to share. So Yash, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me over. Really excited to be a part of this.
Yes, thanks. Yes. So uh, before we get started, could you please give a bit of an introduction about yourself and Boico and what
Sure.
you guys do, so people get to know more about you.
Sure, would be very happy.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, as Harish mentioned, I'm one of the 7 co-founders at the Bombay Hemp Company. I predominantly look after the front end of the business, especially business development and communication. The Bohico, it's been 7.5 years since we've been in the space of hemp and cannabis. In fact, when we started out, we were the first players. We were known as India's premier industrial hemp and medical cannabis company. When we started out, we realized that we weren't just starting a new company in India, but we were starting a whole new industry, a whole new revolution in India when it comes with hemp and cannabis. Though cannabis has been a huge part of India's culture, we never really commercialized the usage of hemp and cannabis, right? So though the crop kind of dates back to
Yes.
9000 BC and it originated in Central Asia, especially the Himalayan region, right? But the modern day hemp and cannabis
Yes.
industry is just about 30 years young, and a lot of new age applications have just started coming out. But like I mentioned, hemp and cannabis has been a huge part of India's culture, be it Ayurveda, which is a basically ancient medicine of India, where cannabis has been
Somewhat like
mentioned.
traditional medicine, right? Traditional medicine and
Correct,
Ayurveda.
correct,
Yes.
correct. In fact, there's another application that dates back 1500 years ago, where there are these caves on the outskirts of Bombay called Ajanta Ellora caves. And Ellora caves, especially the entire inner lining of the caves, is done with hempcrete, which is hemp-based building material. So hemp has been a huge part of India's culture, but it just never kind of the modern applications never came out. That's when me and my co-founder started out Bohico, where we started focusing on various angles, be it scientific research and development, be it policy alignment with the government, and manufacturing, processing, and marketing end products that are made from hemp. So yeah, in a nutshell, that's what we've been doing all this while.
Okay, thanks, Yash. So from what I understand, of course, I met you guys in Mumbai and Bombay, and we had a good time there. I think I've seen what you guys do. You have amazing clothing. If you guys want to check out Boico, you can go to their website. They even have an Instagram page, and you guys are on Facebook as well.
Yeah, on Facebook as well.
At Facebook as well. So yeah, it's interesting when you say that India has a very rich history in hemp. That's very true, even for us, because in Malaysia, there was once the British government, when they used to rule in Malaysia, they planted hemp in Sabah in the Borneo region, right? And basically, Indian hemp was from India, and the
Yeah,
British, when they went to India, they took the spices, they took the seeds, the hemp, and everything, and they started planting in countries that are viable for it to grow. Like Malaysia was definitely a good place because it was close to the Southeast Asia. I mean
yeah,
the South China Sea, and it's good for trading, right?
correct, correct.
So okay, Yash, I just you know uh, I know the basic background of how you guys started. You started with hemp clothing, and slowly you move forward to research and also CBD products, THC products as well, right? Right now, could
Yeah,
you share a
yeah.
little bit
That's
about that? I mean, how's the access of cannabis and how you guys are going about that right now?
Sure. So at the onset, when we started out, the idea was that we wanted to target all the necessities of mankind, which is food, clothing, shelter, and medicine, all from one crop, right? Of course, we were very ambitious back in the day, and we realized that because we're a startup, we can't really go and do all of these things. So we started identifying what is going to be our core offering. Now, since day one, we had realized that our core offering or our engine one is going to be our health and nutrition range of products, right? However, that
Mhm.
back in the day, regulations hadn't kept up with our vision, and we could not launch products that were made from either the hemp seed or the cannabis leaves because there were no licenses available for them. So we started out first, our first offering was textile based products where we were making, first we were supplying fabric by the meter, both handloom, which were hand woven by women artisans of Uttarakhand. We started supporting women self-help groups and we crossed, I think, around 150 women. And we were kind of providing them with a source of livelihood using hemp. And also at the same time, we were bringing down power loom fabrics from different countries such as China, Romania, Taiwan, etc., who already had an existing ecosystem. And we used
Okay.
to trade here. Now, that was the main idea of that was education, right? But the more we started kind of promoting these products, it became a very strong source of revenue, right? So up until actually end of 2018, that was our main business. And within the textiles vertical, there was uh, just fabrics, there was end apparels. We used to sell garments to the end consumer and accessories, and we used to sell fibers and yarns to industry giants such as Raymond's, Arvind Mills, Vardhaman, etc., who are kind of the biggest players in the textile ecosystem in India. End of 2018, we got our licenses in order to manufacture and market products that were made from hemp seeds and cannabis leaves, right? So
Mhm.
after we got the license, we started building the brand. And on 1st February 2019, we launched our brand called BOHECO Life, which is our health and nutrition brand, where we have products for nutrition, which is made from the hemp seeds, so such as hemp seed oil, hemp hearts, hemp seed powder, which we kind of market it for our for Indians, but we also export it. At present, we export these products to over 9 countries, right?
Mhm.
And at the same time, around that same time, we got our license to manufacture leaf-based products. So sometime around November 2019, we started launching products made from the cannabis leaves. Of course, these come under the purview of ancient medicine, Ayurveda, like I mentioned previously. Uh,
Mhm.
and yeah, we launched products. So we launched 3 products: two for topical application for arthritis pain and skin health, and one for
Mhm.
oral consumption for chronic and neuropathic pain. Like you correctly mentioned, these products contain the full spectrum cannabis oil, which means that it has all the cannabinoids, including THC and CBD. In fact, for a
Mhm.
chronic pain product, the amount of THC is a little more than the amount of CBD because for an indication like pain, THC is a lot more helpful. So we've
Mhm.
launched these products. How we went about with regards to the access is we work very closely with the government, right? In
Mhm.
fact, the government's been our biggest partner in our entire journey because
Mhm.
without their support, this industry cannot thrive. Not forget, not just in India, but anywhere because it has a high potential of abuse and misuse. So we've been working with several state and central governments, different departments since day zero, and creating multiple programs on a public-private partnership basis. And because our entire work is led by two things. One is our scientific acumen, and the other is how we understand the law, right? And we also how we understand the law as to how it's being implemented in other countries, right? So when we put
Mhm.
all of these things together, the government kind of takes you very seriously. And because of our deep partnerships with them, our access to these raw materials became relatively easy. Of course, the journey was really long. It took us 7 years to get where we are, but it wouldn't be possible without this support.
Okay, that's amazing. That's amazing how you guys brought all the way from hand clothing. I've seen your guys' I mean, the hand looms and everything is amazing quality, you know. And moving forward to supplements, nutrition, that means hemp seed oils, hemp hearts for you to eat is very high in protein, and also into CBD and THC products, which is
Yeah.
a very great leap from, basically cannabis products were illegal until, but even in India, it was not a foreign plant. I mean, you guys were selling bhang for many years with license, right, from the government. I
Yeah.
think it was about 100,000 rupees a year, somewhere around
Yeah.
that, right?
Something like that. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. So I mean, the history of cannabis is so rich in India that for the government to understand and for them to accept cannabis and to reintroduce it into the society might have not taken such much judgment, because they already understand what the plant is, right? But
Yeah.
could you give me an idea, like how in India you have Tamil Nadu, you have the North India, South India, as a whole, um, how does every state allow cannabis use? I mean, is it different by each state, or is it global? I mean, nationally accepted as a supplement and stuff like this? How is it over there?
So yes, you're right. I mean, of course, hemp has had a very different cultural significance in different parts of India. It was more prevalent in North India compared to Southwest, or in fact, even in East India, it's had a very important role to play with the local community. So yeah, the level of acceptance is very different, culturally speaking. Even like, for example, there are 5 states right now in India that have a bhang ecosystem, right? States like Rajasthan, Orissa, Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, and now Chhattisgarh as well. So these are 5 states there where people can procure a license to sell bhang. Bhang is nothing but the it's cannabis leaves that are used, and they make a paste out of it, and people consume it during festivals, especially around Holi and Shivratri. But even besides that, people, at least in these 5 states, bhang is available all around the year, right? So it has had a very different significance in different parts of the country. Like, I still remember one of our first few visits in Uttarakhand. We had, when we had visited one of the local villages, there was a local dhaba, a local restaurant that we had come across, and there was bhang ki chutney. So basically, it's a dip that was made using hemp seeds that was being available. And at that same place, there was a lady who was applying the hemp seed oil on her stretch marks, right? We went further up the hill. We saw that people were, extracting the fiber of the hemp leaf, and they were making ropes to tie their cattle. They were making clothes for winter wear. So it had a great significance for subsistence use, but there was no economic potential that was realized. And that's what we aim to do via BOHECO. We really wanted to reposition hemp and cannabis in the mind of Indian people, where we wanted to show people that what all this while we've been perceiving as dope is
Mhm.
hope for people who are living in kind of villages, right? And
Yeah, I
that's
like that.
yeah. So we often say that it's hope and not dope,
Yeah,
and it actually
that's good.
is. Yeah, and it
Yes, it
actually
is.
is true for the people, and especially in the mountain regions, in remote villages in Himachal. If it wasn't for cannabis, there is no other source of livelihood, right? And cannabis has
Yes.
proven that means to the end for a lot of people. So yeah, it's got a rich significance, but of course not in the whole country. Predominantly in the mountain regions, closer to the Himalayan belt.
Okay, okay, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Because in Thailand, for the same way as India is going with cannabis, Thailand recognizes cannabis as a traditional medicine, which means the cannabis medicine can be accessed easily by the public, through homeopathic doctors, practicing traditional medicine. They can prescribe the medicine to patients, right? So it's not as restricted as a drug, like a controlled substance, like
Yeah.
opium and stuff like that. So that is
In
interesting,
fact,
because
in
Mhm,
in a lot of different cultures, it's recognized as a source of ancient medicine. Be it the Thai culture, it's also recognized a lot in the Chinese ancient medicine, and even in Islam ancient medicine, there is their ancient medicines called Unani, if I'm not wrong. and even they recognize cannabis. So cannabis, in fact, in India, their ancient text, which is Atharva Veda, recognizes cannabis as the five sacred plants that are on the earth, right?
Yes,
And
correct.
it has, I mean, of course, with time, the usage of cannabis has become more and more modernized. But if you
Mm.
go back, civilizations ago, people used to use this as a mainstream medicine, and there are many enough proof out there available out there to prove that. Yeah.
All right, thanks, Yash. So, okay, moving on to the next question that I have. Um, so, with the large acceptance of cannabis and everything in India, just like in Thailand, how far are you guys in the sense of technology? Because, in many countries, they're speaking about graphene, they're speaking about, making products that, replacing most of the carbon fiber in cars and everything. So, how far is India with hemp and also medical cannabis in sense of technology?
Sure. So, to be very honest with you, in India, the industry is at a very nascent stage, right? You can say the hemp industry, the cannabis industry in India is as young as BOHECO, right? Because before us, there was no conversation or ecosystem that existed. And for people in India, the government and even the companies based out of India, the priority is the lower hanging fruits, right? And by that, what I mean is the applications that are easy to understand by policymakers, scientists, etc. We don't want to complicate it. So high-end applications such as graphene or any other kind of advanced uses of hemp and cannabis have not really taken off in India. However, having said that, we as BOHECO, we want to, because we've had a very strong backbone with regards to our R&D, and we have laid a lot of emphasis on going from 0 to 1 rather than going from 1 to 100. We have institutionalized something within BOHECO called the BOHECO Innovation Lab, right? And under BOHECO Innovation Lab, we work with a lot of different kind of innovators for a lot of different applications, be it something as basic and simple as hemp paper, or be it something as technical or as scientifically advanced as graphene. So we have worked with a lot of these different, we've in fact even worked with a group of researchers from Pune in India to work on hemp-based fuel, hemp biofuel. We've developed hemp graphene
Mhm.
also, and we've found amazing results. It's just it's too far away from it being commercialized, given that in order to commercialize these high-end applications such as biofuel or graphene, you require large volumes of raw material available to you, which is at present
Yes.
not available in India. But I think in
Mhm.
time, once there is enough, once the supply end of things are taken care of, I think innovations
Mhm.
will automatically fall in place. Not just Rohit or via BOHECO, but there are so many bright minds and companies that will take up that task of innovating kind of more and more products. As of now, we're just scratching the tip of the iceberg. There's not much that has happened in that space right now, but there are some passion projects that have been, here and there. There is one company called, if I'm not wrong, their name's Avega Technology. They again, they're the same group of researchers who we worked to make the hemp biofuel, but they are doing some very interesting work with regards to hemp engineering products. They've made ply using hemp. They've made a muffler for a bike using the hemp
Yes,
fiber.
I've seen the muffler in
Yeah.
Bombay.
Right. Yeah. So
Okay.
these kind of innovators are coming up and doing some very cool things. Someone's come up with hemp sanitary pads, right? So all kinds of things are happening right now. It's a very good time to be in the space of hemp and cannabis, especially in a place like India. Yeah, it's exciting times ahead with
Yes, and yes, and I look forward for more technologies to come forward. I mean, it's a very eco-friendly plant. It can replace many things like tissue, paper, and everything that is is overly consumed in the world, right? So, you can help with deforestation. So many things can be fixed with
sure.
hemp. Basically,
Correct.
it is kind of a miracle plant. Maybe probably that is one of the reasons why India, I mean, the Atharva Veda stated that it is one of the five sacred plants along with
Yeah.
rice and barley, right?
Yeah.
I think that is very interesting to see how far India can go because knowing that companies like BOHECO and many companies that is coming up as well, who's focused on this. And I've seen how you guys work with universities and researchers on this. So it's very interesting to see what you guys can come up. So okay, but one thing I like to mention though is that in Malaysia we are definitely an agriculture country. So our main source of income comes from plantations. Palm oil is our main source of income at the moment, followed by rubber. But hemp, in 2011, our former Prime Minister introduced this kanaf. Kanaf is a
Yeah,
far relation. Yeah, you know kanaf. It
yeah,
is
yeah.
the scientific name of kanaf is hibiscus cannabinus. So
Cannabis.
it's very far. Yeah, so it's a very far relation. Is a cousin to cannabis. But we have over 36 factories in Malaysia to process kanaf.
Mhm.
So we have the facility there. All we have to do at the moment is just change the seeds and use the same machinery to create fiber products. The factories are built to focus on fibers. So it'd be interesting to see if Malaysia will go there. There's a lot of talking going around saying that
Okay.
Malaysia might accept this, especially after the COVID-19 outbreak. We need something to generate back our economy.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
okay, moving on to our next question, Yash,
yeah.
is how because right now we just want to understand like how is the government in India, what are they doing different? Because you see, we basically share the same laws. We were Commonwealth countries. We share basically the same outline of laws. It's not very much different. Although our political system is different, how they govern is almost the same. So
Yeah.
in India, how is the government, how to say, regulating cannabis? I understand that the cannabis plants are not is still under control of the government, which means they are collecting all the plants by themselves, the one that is growing in the states that is already traditionally been growing. So there's no really new upcoming what they call groweries and all of this, right? It's just basically using what is already there. So maybe could you explain like what is the direction of the government? Are they going to allow growing facilities? Are they going to allow extraction companies to come up? What is their direction with cannabis?
Sure. So, in fact, since the very beginning, right, hemp and cannabis at a central or at a national level was never banned, right? Even if you refer the NDPS Act, it clearly states that one can cultivate industrial hemp for its seed and fiber uses for industrial and horticultural uses, right?
I see.
However, cannabis falls in the concurrent list, which means that the central government, in a very layman term, I'm explaining, the central government sets the rules and regulations, and the state government sets the guiding principles, right? Which means that every state has an opportunity to kind of draft their own regulation with regards to hemp and cannabis. So different states are looking at this in a very different way, right? So for example, states with a very rich cultural heritage or a cultural association with the crop are looking at this in a very progressive manner compared to the states that have not seen the use of cannabis culturally. And that's mainly because the chief ministers or the people at the helm of each state usually belong to the state, and while growing up, they have seen the use of hemp and cannabis, right? So when I say a state like, for example, Uttarakhand or Uttar Pradesh or Himachal Pradesh, look at this from a completely different lens from any South Indian state or like a state like Maharashtra, for example, right?
Hmm.
However, the fundamental similarity is that most of the states are studying as to how different countries have regulated it and what are the key learnings in terms of best practices and the mistakes that can be observed and picked up from each of these countries, right? So, in fact, the first state in India to kind of legalize the commercial cultivation of industrial hemp upon obtaining a license from the state government was the state of Uttarakhand. Now, that
Hmm.
state came out with a commercial policy with regards to the cultivation of the crop. However, after rolling out the commercial policy, it was understood that okay, in order to for someone to grow hemp on a commercial scale, one requires an approved seed variety which is less than 0.3% THC which is a global norm, right? But after coming out with the commercial policy, it was realized that, oh, we require an R&D policy first in order to research and develop a genetic which can be low in its narcotic value and optimum in terms of its yield, right? And that was something that it wasn't thought through, right? However, the state that kind of legalized it for R&D, the next state was Uttar Pradesh, right? They came out with a policy, and the policy state that one can grow hemp only for R&D use, and they didn't give out commercial license, right? So different states are kind of learning from each other, and it's an evolving process. Though we are very thankful that again, like I mentioned earlier, cannabis has been a huge part of India's culture, and owing to that, the acceptance at the government level is is huge. Plus, a lot of states already have the bhang ecosystems, like we touched upon earlier. And owing to all of these factors, the government's opening up. However, for medical cannabis, which is going to be high CBD, high THC, there is still a lot of clarity that needs to be sought at the government level. It's not like there are ready answers. The government's still in the process of understanding what's right, what's not. India is one of the largest growers of opium, which is another narcotic, but it's also used for medical application. And in case of
Yes.
opium, the 100% of the cultivation is controlled by the government, right? So the government is still thinking, should we go down the opium route where the cultivation of these potent cannabis strains can be controlled by the government? And so it's still in an evolving stage. We have received a license again. We're in partnership with a CSIR institute in Jammu and Kashmir called Triple IM, where we are researching on medical cannabis crops also in their facility itself, where we're studying the plant chemistry and studying the genetics of the kind of cannabis strains available in India. And through this data and kind of a methodical approach of understanding what really exists in our backyard, will we be able to flesh out a policy that's both favorable for the consumer as well as the government to protect the misuse bit. So yeah, it's in the works. It's still evolving as we speak.
Okay, thanks, Yash. That's a very clear explanation actually. So I understand that India basically already had a law saying that hemp can be cultivated for fibers and for its seeds, but they're
Yeah,
still not very clear on the medical cannabis side, which I think doing research is the only way to answer. I mean, even our organization and we've been friends for quite a while. But I mean, when we first approached you guys, I think the first thing I was speaking about was about research. Was
yeah,
talking about research for major depression,
yeah,
which is what we have been suggesting to the government in Malaysia for many years now, and it's just the stigma that is that's over there, which is lengthening the time, the period needed to do research, because the same thing happened in the US. um, where when the state of Arizona, what they call the state government, has legalized the use of medical cannabis, but when they wanted to do research in the University of Arizona, Dr. Sue Sisley, who was trying to study how cannabis can treat PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, her research was postponed for at least 5 years. Just because, even though it was legal in the state, you see. So the challenges that we face, not only in Malaysia but all over the world,
yeah,
to end the stigma is a very important and huge step. Yeah, and we are very interested as an organization. When we look at cannabis, basically from the years that we've been involved, we feel that cannabis will definitely be recognized more like a traditional medicine, like a
yeah,
supplement, including the
yeah,
THC products, but probably very high levels of THC might be controlled in by doctors, maybe for cancer treatment. So very high levels of THC might be controlled, but if it's basically almost all the plant will be a supplement. So we feel that research should be more open source rather than how it was with pharmaceutical products, where big pharma companies do research, and they own the patent of all the compounds and stuff like that. I don't think it should be the same for cannabis. I'm sure you also might agree, because there's many compounds in cannabis, right? So okay,
yeah.
so basically, I think we've covered a lot today, Yash. So I just have one final question.
Sure.
because from our perspective and from your perspective, we just want to know what is your opinion about cannabis use, basically. I mean, getting high, the feeling of getting high. What is your opinion about that? And finally, what is your vision for BOHECO and yourself and India, the country, in 5 years, 2020 to 2025? So maybe you can
Sure.
elaborate on that.
Sure, I'll cover both. Yeah. So to answer your first question, my opinion on getting high and recreational use of cannabis, right? In my mind, to be very honest, to each his own, right? And I do understand as humans, humans usually kind of get attracted to different vices in different forms, and we've seen how different societies kind of interact with different vices, right? In my
Correct.
opinion, there is nothing wrong in it, right? In my personal opinion, I don't consume recreational cannabis as much, but it's very straightforward, right? If you can be responsible with your vices, if you can be responsible with how you kind of interact with not just cannabis but even anything else, then it should not be an issue, right? Though I have a very strong reservations with regards to consumption of cannabis in the form of smoking it, right? And that's how most of the people do it, because any kind of smoke is bad, right? Of course, there are much better and relatively healthier ways of consuming cannabis compared to what smoking is, and I'm definitely a big no-no for usage of cannabis by smoking it. Also, at the same
Mm-hmm.
time, if I were to kind of see the benefits that cannabis has on the medical spectrum or the industrial spectrum, I think they outweigh the benefits or any kind of effect that recreational cannabis has, right? I'd rather want to help a kid with epilepsy who has 400 seizures a week rather than help a youngster kind of get intoxicated. For me,
Yeah.
there is no conversation around that. For me, there is no debate around that. For me, all of those benefits always outweigh any effects that come out of recreational cannabis. And like I said in
Mm-hmm.
the start, to each his own. As long as you're responsible, I mean, it's all right. It's your life. Do what you want. But again, I would kind of not compartmentalize it with the medical or the industrial use. With
All
regards to
right.
the vision of BOHECO, the idea is to be a vertically integrated direct-to-consumer company with special focus on human health and consumption-based products, especially with a core focus on lifestyle-based applications such as anxiety, sleep disorders, pain management, things like that, because we do feel that in a time like this, right, we can see that everything is changing around us, and thanks to the pandemic, a lot of realizations are coming in front of all of us. And I do feel
Yes.
that cannabis occupies a very important role in
Yes.
every human being's life, be it keeping in mind the social side, keeping in mind the environment side, keeping in mind the lifestyle and the health benefits. I think it is no longer an alternative, but it is the solution, right, to most of our problems. And for us at BOHECO, the idea is to only make sure that we help the plant get the respect it truly deserves. At the same time, making sure that the benefits of this plant kind of reaches to millions and millions of people who require it, who need it, rather than wanting it. So yeah, that's the whole idea, and that's how we plan to kind of carve the way forward for ourselves as well.
All right. Very well said, Yash. I like how you said, how you explain that cannabis use is actually a responsible, and it depends on the responsibility of every single person. That's very, very true. I've seen people who smoke cannabis in Malaysia and all over the world who are successful and doing well, and I've seen some who, are just not so. So,
Yeah,
and it actually is not because of the plant, but it is actually their character themselves, their behaviors, right? So yes, I agree with that. Um, and I hope that people don't misjudge cannabis. In Malaysia, like you can see the poster behind me, it
yeah,
says "Hapuskan stigma," which means end the stigma. Okay.
Okay.
So, that's what we're trying to do. This is what the show is all about. So, okay, Yash, I think that's all the time we have for today. Thank you very much for this conversation today. I mean, it's a great time to catch up with you. I think it's been almost 2 years since we met.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's 2 years since we met.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
thank you for being on the show. I
Sure.
hope to get on call with you again in the future. So take
Absolutely. No,
care.
thank you for
Have a good
having
night.
me, and all the very best. Good night.
Yes. Oh, and guys, any one of you who have any questions, please drop it at the comment section below, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. So good night. Have a good day. Bye.
Bye bye.